We all need really cheap players to fit into our squads so that we are enabled to get more expensive players elsewhere. So who are the cheapest players in FPL that will start this season? In today's video, I will cover this. Welcome back to the channel, FPL Consult here. And on the screen today, I have 11 players who will start in game week 1, and they are the cheapest in each of their respective departments, whether it's defense, midfield, or the forwards, or even the goalkeeper. So we'll cover them one by one, and then I'll add on some picks that I think are still very cheap, but I'm not sure if they'll start. They'll be on the bench later on. So let's start off in goal with Dubravka here at 4.0 million. Really cheap, and he plays for Burnley. Now, 21% of people have already owned him, so I don't think this is new information. But at least, let's go over to Twitter, and basically, Newcastle have already come out to say that after 7.5 years on Tyneside, that Dubravka has left the club, joining Burnley on a permanent transfer. So this was as of 7th of August, a couple of days ago. And basically now he is expected to be the first choice keeper for Burnley. So going back to the team here, he is the only keeper right now that in FPL that we can say we are certain that he will be playing at 4.0 million. And that's why his ownership is so high at 21%. Now, keeping on the same team here, Burnley, we have Maxime Esteve, and he's at 4.0 million, 13.3% owned, and that's mainly because he played all of Burnley's game last season, 46 games in the championship, he played all of them. Parker has also come out to say that Esteve is going to have a very pivotal role in the defense for Burnley this season, and he's going to likely play every single game. So at 4.0 million, a very solid starter in your squad. If that's what you need, Esteve will kind of cover that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about are the Sunderland players. I have 4 of them here. Reinildo, Xhaka, Enzo Lefebvre, and also Mayenda. So let's go over to the predicted lineups here for Sunderland, and that's what you see on this side of the screen here. And basically, based on this setup, we see Reinildo, as well as Xhaka, Enzo Lefebvre, and Mayenda. And I want to cover a little bit about these 4 players and why I've singled them out. So Reinildo is 4.0 million. Now the thing is, he's been signed from Atletico Madrid, and he is likely going to be their starting left back based on this kind of predicted lineup. And Sunderland have also signed a backup left back in Arthur Masuaku, who has some Premier League experience playing for West Ham previously, but he's been signed by from Besiktas as a backup for Reinildo. So Reinildo is still expected to be the first choice starting left back for Sunderland, and he does have quite some attacking threat. So if you do want to go for him, I don't mind it at all. Next up, there's Xhaka, proven in the Premier League as a very good player. Previously, he played for Arsenal. Before going to Leverkusen, you would know how good he was. But I think in terms of how he will fit into this Sunderland team, he's likely going to drop a little bit deeper. So I don't think attacking threat-wise is going to be as high. But maybe defensive contributions for Xhaka will be quite good. Now, Enzo Lefebvre, last season he had quite some joy playing on the left wing for Sunderland. But this season he's expected to play more centrally because that is where he is naturally supposed to play. And coming into this season, that is where also he's been hinted to play centrally. So I don't think attackingly he's going to have as much output, but technically a very gifted player. 5.0 million and likely going to start as well. Then up front, there's Mayenda. So Mayenda has established himself as the number 9 for Sunderland. 10 goals, 5 assists, started all of the playoff matches as well, and he was pivotal in Sunderland coming up to the Premier League. So he is expected to still start, but there is, of course, a very exciting 4.5 million signing that Sunderland have made in Mark Guiu, and we'll cover him later on. I haven't put him in the starting 11 in this team, because basically I'm not confident that he starts in game week 1, but he could be someone as well. So we will cover him when we talk about the bench. But that covers the Sunderland players. So Reinildo, Xhaka, Enzo Lefebvre, and Mayenda, all very cheap at their respective departments. 4.0 for Reinildo, 5 million for Xhaka and Enzo Lefebvre, and Mayenda at 5.5. Now, covering some Leeds players first, I think when we look at Leeds, there's Rodon in defense, and he is similar to Esteve, someone who played 46 out of the 46 championship games last season for Leeds. He's expected to be, again, one of the key players in defense for Leeds. Now, the fixtures for Leeds are not exactly super easy. Everton at home in game week 1, then they run into Arsenal and Newcastle the next two. Fulham, Wolves, Bournemouth is pretty much okay. Then after that, they have Spurs again. So I think, again, when you're looking at these kind of cheap players, it's not so much so that you want them to play every single week, but you're looking for someone who does play. And if they so happen to have good fixtures, you can start them instead of leaving them on your bench. If not, more often than not, they would just be your bench foders. Now, Longstaff here, 5.0 million. Plenty of Premier League experience with Newcastle. We know how good he was when he was under Eddie Howe. He's been signed by Leeds now, and going into this season, he is also expected to play very, very centrally. Output-wise, we don't really know how well he's going to do, but at least for 5.0 million, you know you're going to have a starter in Sean Longstaff with Premier League experience. Up front for Leeds here is Pirro at 5.5 million. Now, he's done really well in pre-season, 4 goals already, and he is the kind of key number 9 for Leeds as well. Played 46 games last season. Maybe some games he didn't start, but most of them he started, and 46 out of 46 games he appeared. So very, very consistent player for Leeds. And last season he got 19 goals and 7 assists as well. So Pirro at 5.5 million, also someone else that could be considered. And now that remains is 2 players in Baliba and Matasa, both at 5 million. And I think that is really cheap for these 2 players with proven Premier League experience. So I'll cover first Baliba. Now, when I look at Baliba, I'm going over to the Fantasy Football Scout data now. And as you're watching this video as well, I am an affiliate of Fantasy Football Scout. So all the data that you see moving forward in today's video will be from Fantasy Football Scout. If you are keen to check it out for yourself as well, the first link in the description will get you 47% off. But looking at the midfield defensive data now, among all the midfielders who've had at least 10 appearances last season and also at least played 60 minutes per appearance, I kind of filtered that data to per 90 in terms of defensive contributions. And when you see this column here, you realize that Baliba is at 12.64 defensive contributions per 90, and that kind of hits the quota because we need at least 12 defensive contributions from midfielders to get their extra 2 points. But something important to kind of take note as well is Caicedo is here. Caicedo is here at 12.25, and Caicedo is the one with the most number of defensive contributions points last season. So when I compare Baliba to Caicedo, Baliba actually has a slightly better defensive contributions per 90 stat, and he is in obviously the top few. I think both of these players are likely going to get lots of defensive contributions points, but to put it into perspective, I think it's looking good for Baliba. And also, he is someone that you know is capable of shooting from really far out. Brighton really kind of got a player in midfield that can pull off those kind of Paul Scholes-esque goals. So going back to the team now, I think Baliba, especially with the fixtures moving forward, it's not the easiest, but I think I rate Brighton as a team as well. Fulham, Everton, Man City is pretty tough, and then there's Bournemouth, Spurs, followed by Chelsea. So he's not a player that if you have in your team, you'll be starting every single week. But again, why not have someone on your bench at 5 million to enable your squad? He will still start. And if he starts, you know he's capable of getting defensive contribution points. And he's also capable of getting the odd goal here and there. Now, the last player in the starting 11 that I want to cover is Matasa. Now, Spurs fixtures are really good. He's at 5.0 million, and in my opinion, the biggest differential in this team. 2.1% owned, and he's highly likely to be in my own team as well. And I'll cover a couple of reasons why. So, looking at the positions that he played under Ange Postecoglou, this is the 24-25 season kind of player map for Matasa in terms of positions and where he kind of played. And you'll realize that he played mostly either left centre mid or right centre mid, right? More often than not, he was playing as a left centre mid. And in terms of him playing the number 10 in the pocket here, you see that it's not a very high percentage of the games that he played last season where he filled in the CAM role. So most of the time he was sitting back quite a bit and deployed a little bit more defensively. So it was harder for him to get goals, but he did still register 2 goals and 3 assists last season. But I think going into this season, that role is likely going to change under Thomas Frank. Now, firstly, a couple of important context to consider is that James Maddison now has an ACL injury, so he's going to be missing for majority of the season, and Spurs don't really have a lot of players to fill in this CAM spot here. So what we have seen in preseason, even when Maddison was fit, was a couple of different formations, but Pat Matasa still filling in this CAM role despite Maddison being in the squad. So I'll pull up two kind of examples here. So on 26 July, Tottenham played at Wycombe, and Pat Matasa was deployed as a number 10. So you'll see here, in behind him was Bergvall and Abbott. Now, he got 2 goals from this game, did really, really well, and playing in the pocket here, he looked really, really good. Now, when I move over to another example here against Newcastle, 3rd August, so slightly more recent. Now, this is a game that you also saw Pat Matasa playing in the pocket here, but I think this is more likely what we'll see in terms of who's going to be in behind Pat Matasa. It's Rodrigo Bentancur and Archie Gray. I think there are a couple of other players who could fill in this spot beside Bentancur. It could be Bissouma as well. But either way, the point that we're trying to make here is that Pat Matasa is more likely to be deployed as a number 10, and especially since James Maddison is out for a very long period of time, you'll likely see Pat Matasa playing in the number 10 position more often than not, unless they sign another player before the transfer window closes. I'm quite confident that at 5.0 million, going back to the team here, that he is someone with pretty good value in terms of attacking threat that we'll see moving forward this season, and also he's good for minutes, because I do think even if someone else plays in number 10, he does have the capacity, as we saw last season, to play a little bit more defensively. Maybe next to Rodrigo Bentancur is where he could be deployed as well. Not as good for attacking threat if he does go there, but still someone that you'd expect to start, and at 5.0 million, really, really good value. Now, I'll cover 4 more players before we end off today's video, and these are players that I'm putting on the bench because I'm not so certain that they will be starting. So the first one is the goalkeeper, Kinski. Now, Kinski and Vicario have been kind of rotating in terms of their position in goal in the preseason games for Spurs. So really at this point, you don't really know. Vicario is still, I guess, in terms of the Spurs forums, more likely to start, but I think Kinski does have an outside chance. I'm not going to rule him out. I think in terms of the cheapest players, again, because we're looking at the cheapest players we could afford here, Kinski at 4.0 million is someone with, outside of Dubravka, the best chance of starting. Now, in terms of defenders, I'm going to go with Gudmundsson here. So Gudmundsson is someone that Leeds have just signed into their team, and he's likely going to be playing in the left back role. He has been playing left back for most of his career, so you'd expect that he's also quite an attacking player. So at 4.0 million, again playing for Leeds, I don't mind it. Again, another bench fodder. Now, in terms of the last defender that I'll mention here is actually Heaven from Manchester United. Now, he has had some form of game time in preseason, but I don't think he's someone that I'm as certain is going to start, and hence he is on the bench here. But again, at 4.0 million, playing for Manchester United, he is someone in with an outside chance of starting games, but not confident that he'll start every single game. And the last player that I have to give special mention to is Mark Guiu. Now, the thing with Mark Guiu is that he's been signed by Sunderland from Chelsea, and 4.5 million makes him the cheapest forward that will start if he gets consistent minutes. Now, the reason why I haven't put him ahead of Mayenda here into the starting 11 is mainly because he's currently not even with the squad yet. He needs some more time to assimilate, basically. So we don't expect him to be starting in game week 1. The most that we'll see is Mark Guiu coming off the bench in game week 1, but moving forward, there is a chance that we could see him starting either alongside Mayenda or maybe playing in behind Mayenda. It's not a case, I've read some of the Sunderland forums, and it's not the case where either one starts. There could be a possibility that both of them feature in some form of a setup that sees both of these attacking players in the same team. But if not, there's also a clause in Mark Guiu's Sunderland contract that says that he needs to get a certain amount of game time. If not, Sunderland will have to pay a penalty. And Sunderland also came out to say that that is not something they envision to be a hindrance. So basically, I do think that indicates to me that Mark Guiu is someone likely to play quite a number of games for Sunderland as well. So overall, when I look at this team, again, this is a team of the cheapest players who will start in game week 1, bar the bench players that I've just mentioned for obvious reasons. If you're looking for really cheap players, then anyone in this starting 11 here, I am confident that they will start, and wherever you need these players and however you want to rotate them, that could decide which one you go for. But as I've mentioned, all of them, I'm pretty confident it will start. Let me know what you think of the picks here, and also have I missed out any cheap players that I should be going for. Again, today's video is a video of the cheapest players. So I haven't spoken about any 4.5 million defenders or maybe 5.5s in the midfield or even 6 million in the forward line. We're going for the really, really cheap players. So let me know what you think. Have I missed out any players? Which ones are you going for in your own team? And I'll catch you guys in the next video very, very soon. Bye-bye.